Hi, I'm Yvette Reed, physical therapist and certified health coach with Purely Pelvic, and I'm here today to teach you some tips so that you can get to the bathroom without urgency. So, are you having trouble with either feeling like you have to pee all of the time, or maybe you just feel like you can't make it to the toilet whenever you need to urinate? So those are two of the main types of urgency that people struggle with. So one of them would be, let's say you're able to hold your urine for what is considered the normal time frame, which is needing to urinate about every 2 to 4 hours. And if you're feeling like you are able to wait that long, but when you do feel like you need to go, then you are in a really big rush. You feel like you might not make it there, and in fact, sometimes you end up not making it, and you may have a little bit of leakage. So we can use these techniques to help with that, but we can also use these techniques to help if you're having frequency of urination. So some people end up feeling like they need to urinate every 30 minutes, maybe every hour. I often hear that, I'm drinking a lot of water or I'm drinking a lot of fluids, so, that's why I have to pee so often. But the truth is, if you're drinking about 8 to 10 cups of water a day, then you should be able to urinate about every 2 to 4 hours. And also, you should be able to sleep through the night or maybe get up once. So there are 3 things that you can do. The first technique is that you are going to take about 3 deep, calming breaths. So if you've ever been nervous, like I tend to get nervous talking in front of people. So if I get nervous and I feel like my heart is racing, then I usually do some breaths to settle myself down. And it's the same type of thing. We have part of our brain controls our nervous system automatically. It's called the autonomic nervous system. And when we do these nice deep breaths, it helps to settle us down, and it kind of tricks our brain into thinking that we're relaxed, which helps our bladder behave better. The second technique is to do 3 Kegel contractions. So you may want to look into some videos about making sure you're doing your Kegel contractions correctly. But you can do them for somewhere around 3 to 5 seconds. And then when you relax, don't quite relax all the way, and then just go right back into another nice strong contraction for 3 to 5 seconds, and repeat that 3 to 5 times. And then the last technique is to distract yourself. So I usually just try to think about anything other than the bathroom. Maybe I will be thinking about that I need to go put some laundry away in my room, or work, anything but the fact that I need to go to the bathroom. Sometimes it's suggested to do things like count backwards from 100 in sevens, but I always kid around that that's just going to stress me out, so that's going to trigger the other technique that we're using. But whatever works to get your mind off of you need to go to the bathroom. So we have these 3 techniques. Now, when you first start to practice these techniques, you are more than likely going to need to go through them more than once. So it doesn't really matter what order you do the techniques in. For some people, you're going to find, maybe if you're practicing these for a week or so, that maybe 1 or 2 of the techniques are working better than maybe the other one. And I do say it's fine to use the ones that you think are working for the current situation, what's going on with your life right now. Those may be the ones that are working best for the situation. So just to make sure you maybe jot these down and keep them handy, or come back to this video if you're having trouble at another time and maybe those 1 or 2 that you were using are not working for you anymore. So let's say you haven't been to the bathroom in at least 2 hours, and you feel like you need to go, but as soon as you get up, as soon as you're on your way to the toilet, you just feel like you're not going to make it, or you just get a very strong, uncomfortable sense of urgency. So as difficult as it is, you want to stop and do these 3 techniques. So you're going to do about 3 calming breaths. You do your 3 to 5 Kegels, and then you're going to do something to distract yourself. And you want to continue to go through these techniques until you feel like the urgency has settled down. I've seen in some cases where it says you want to settle it down to where you have no urgency, but I think when you first start working on the techniques, maybe you start at a 7 or an 8 out of 10 for your urgency, and when you do the techniques, you get it settled down to a level 2 to 3 out of 10. And then, okay, as you practice it, you're going to get better and your results will be getting you down to 0. But I think it would be fine if you got yourself down to a 2 or a 3, and then you start to walk to the bathroom. But don't run, don't rush, go at a normal speed. And on your way, if you start to get that feeling of urgency again, you actually want to stop and do the 3 techniques again. It's very difficult to do that whenever you're feeling like you might not make it. I tell my patients that if you're at home, this is a really good opportunity to push yourself a little bit with this so that you gain confidence. And that way, if you're in a public place or maybe you don't have on a panty liner or some kind of a protection, that you feel like you will gain confidence and be able to tackle it whenever you're in those situations. The more you practice it, the better you're going to get, and the less often you're going to have to stop, and the less number of times you'll have to go through these techniques. And then the other situation where you want to use these techniques is if you're urinating too often. So again, your frequency should be about every 2 to 4 hours during the day. So if you're urinating more often than that, the thing that you want to do is when you do go to the bathroom, you want to count how long you have a nice steady stream of urine. So do something like 1/1000, 2/1000. So you want this to be pretty accurate in the number of seconds. And when it's a female, we should have at least 8 seconds, and for males, at least 11 to 12 seconds of steady flow of urine. Sometimes as men get a little bit older and they're having some prostate issues, your flow may not be the same, so that makes it a little bit less of an accurate way to measure if your bladder was full. But basically, if you are urinating that number of seconds or less, your bladder wasn't really full. And so the feeling that you were having, like you need to go and urinate right now, was not that your bladder was full. It was just maybe a little bit of overactivity, we call it, of your bladder. And so remind yourself after you've done that, and if you weren't urinating that long, when you do feel like you need to go and it hasn't been a real reasonable time frame for you to need to go to the bathroom, that oftentimes you really didn't have a full bladder. But you want to do the same 3 techniques. So you want to do 3 nice calming breaths, 3 to 5 Kegels, holding them 3 to 5 seconds, and then distracting yourself. So let's say it's been 30 minutes. I feel like I need to go. I do the techniques and I get it settled down. And now maybe I can push myself 5 or 10 minutes further. And so you will gradually push yourself to get to that more normal span of time. So you're shooting for not going any more often than 2 hours. There are some things that can make that a bit more difficult. So a lot of patients that I see might be taking in a lot of irritants for the bladder. So if you're just drinking water, you do want to shoot for about 8 cups of water a day. If you have any medical conditions, you can check with your doctor and make sure it's okay for you to drink that much, because some people are on a fluid restriction. But if you're drinking a good 8 cups of water, then you should have fairly dilute urine. When you are dehydrated, your urine gets more concentrated and your urine is carrying toxins out of your body. So if you have a concentrated urine, then when it's sitting in your bladder, it can actually irritate the walls of the bladder and make you feel like you need to urinate, even though there's not that much urine there. Other things that will irritate the bladder are acidic foods and beverages, carbonated drinks. Ones that are carbonated at home would be fine, but whenever they're carbonated in a plant, they have chemicals that's in the drink. You will want to avoid sugary foods and beverages, and apparently the artificial sweeteners tend to irritate the bladder even more than sugar. So I know nobody likes to hear these things. Alcohol is also an irritant, nicotine. So keep in mind those things. So if you get up in the morning and you're already dehydrated, you haven't been drinking all night, and you have 1 or 2 cups of coffee, next thing you know, you're having to urinate more often. Well, it has a little bit to do with the coffee and the fact that you're dehydrated. I tend to set a little goal for myself every day because I love my coffee, and I will make sure I have a couple of cups of water before I get my coffee in the morning. You want to actually spread your water intake out over the day. On average, somewhere around 4 to 6 ounces per hour is what they recommend, so that you're not triggering a diuretic reflex. So if you just guzzle down 2 cups of water all at once, your body recognizes that and it starts telling your kidneys to work overtime, and then you'll get rid of urine a lot faster so that you can have a balance in your fluids, your blood pressure. So you don't want to just maybe 3 or 4 times a day just drink 2 cups of water. You do want to spread it out through the day. And keep in mind, if you're having some of those foods, there are a lot more bladder irritants. I'm just kind of telling you the most common ones that we see. So just to sum this up, urge suppression is to help settle down the feeling like you might not make it to the bathroom, or that you need to go more often than when your bladder is really full. So we want to do these techniques. Number 1, 3 calming breaths, settle yourself down. 2 is to do 3 to 5 Kegel contractions, hold for 3 to 5 seconds, and distract yourself. Remember, do the techniques a few times over until you feel like the urge has decreased, and then walk slowly to the bathroom. Don't rush. If you get in a rush, you'll tend to trigger a little bit of an anxiety, and that stress will reverse some of those good effects of the calming breaths that you did. And so you will do these techniques if your urge comes back very strong while you're on your way. And the more often you do it, the better you're going to get, the quicker your body will respond, and you won't have to stop in the middle of your walk to the bathroom. And also, we're going to use this if you're urinating more often than about every 2 hours, so that you can start to gradually increase that time and not have to go to the bathroom quite so often. The other thing, one of the biggest habits that people have that ends up causing them a little bit of trouble with their bladder, is going just in case. In the pelvic world, we just say JIC, but urinating just in case is a habit that will end up making you need to go more and more often. So we say it's okay to urinate right before you go to bed, right before you go on a long trip meaning something like 2 hours or longer, before or after intercourse. And so that's the 3 times. So if you're getting up in the morning and urinating and you get ready for work and it's 45 minutes later and you don't really need to go, but you're going to go ahead and go, that's not a great habit. If you do that right before you run errands, just because maybe you got to work and you can go right then and you're shortening up the time, your bladder doesn't have an opportunity to stretch. And so it can get kind of like a little bit tighter. I tell people it's like if you've been on a diet for a little while and you go to your favorite restaurant and you eat a very large meal, you feel like you can't eat the same amount, right? And you're pretty uncomfortable, but you also can't even put that same amount of food in. And that happens to the bladder muscle also. So if you continue to go in empty frequently, then the bladder will just not have the capacity to be able to go to those normal time frames. Oh, and one other thing, if you're sleeping and it is waking you up, or something else is waking you up, try to go back to sleep. Roll over, see if you can go back to sleep. You don't want to make any habits like a lot of new moms who are getting up to feed their baby. They will just go and urinate every time they get up to feed the baby. And next thing you know, the baby's sleeping through the night and the mom is still getting up 2, 3, 4 times a night to pee. So you only are going to go when you need to go. So roll over, see if you can go back to sleep. If you can't, you can then try doing the calming breaths and doing the Kegels and then seeing if you can go back to sleep. I say just the first, go back to sleep as the first thing to try, because I feel like if you go through all 3 of the techniques, it may actually wake you up and disrupt your sleep. So I just encourage you to just first try to roll over and see if you can go back to sleep. And then go through the other 2 techniques, breathing and Kegels. And if you still really feel like you need to go ahead and get up and go. But yeah, you don't want to have these habits that are just going to end up with you having to be in the bathroom all the time. And the next thing you know, you'll be able to go on a road trip or run errands for a couple of hours and not have to look for where the bathroom is in every store. And also, when you're on your way to the toilet, you won't feel like you're in a panic. And if you are leaking, these techniques will help suppress some of the bladder responses that we can have when we're having what we call urge urinary incontinence. So I hope these techniques were helpful. Please feel free to put in the comments if you have any questions or any other videos you'd like me to make so that I can teach you a few things. And I appreciate you listening, and have a great day.